Everyone seems to be buzzing about the news. There's now a second coronavirus vaccine in the making, which is said to be 94.5% effective against COVID-19. So this one is being developed, as you've been hearing, by the drugs company Moderna, an American company. Both the Pfizer vaccine and this one work in a very similar way, but the companies themselves operate very differently. So Moderna is currently loss-making. It's received nearly $1 billion in research funding from the US government, whereas Pfizer is a huge drug giant, as you know. So it's got self-funded research and it's developed the vaccine on a purely commercial basis. So it stands to earn $13 billion in sales next year alone. So does the way the research is funded affect who benefits? And how do governments decide which vaccines to back? Well, let's discuss this with Lord David Triesman, who's chairman of BioFarma Innovations. Thank you for being on the programme. So, like all of us, I'm sure you've had a look at the latest news, what Moderna's offering, what Pfizer and BioNTech is up to. Give us your take on how these companies differ and how they operate.
Well, I think the first really big difference, which is a significant one, is the one that you've mentioned, either doing it on the basis of an investment to achieve a return, which Pfizer is doing, and it needs to do that because it's had some significant setbacks with some of its drugs over the years, through 2006, right on to relatively recently. And I imagine that they will be hoping to repair some of the holes that have appeared in their former budgeting. The Moderna one has been funded, as you said, largely by government. There are about a dozen vaccines in the world which are being close to this kind of level of development now. And they're all funded in one or other of those kinds of ways. And the latter case, the Moderna case, they're following a model which the Nobel laureate from last year, Michael Kramer, had been advocating, which is where a government advances the money and therefore takes 6-8 months out of the process of getting the drug to the market, that it should be available for people in the developing world as well, who otherwise would not be able to afford it. And these are very, very different kinds of business models. But given the scale of what's required, I can imagine there'll be more types of business model emerging as well.
Absolutely. And there's several other companies working on forms of a vaccine for COVID-19, AstraZeneca in Russia, in China, for example. So in terms of the distribution, who benefits, as you say, how will that work? Who's in the queue, as it were? Who gets access first?
Well, in different countries, there will be different decisions about what the priority criteria are, whether it's the most vulnerable part of the population, older people, people with comorbidities, or whether it's going to be care workers, teachers, absolutely critical workers in the health sector. There will be decisions of that kind. But one of the things which strikes me very forcefully, we know that there are now, according to Johns Hopkins University, there are something in the order of 55 million people infected. Some of the companies are talking about production levels of about 20 million doses in the first year. So there's going to be plenty of room for more than the first few companies, because the requirement will be absolutely enormous. And incidentally, I make the point because I think it's one of the most serious points being made by for example, Jonathan Van Tam, who's the Deputy Medical Officer for the United Kingdom. The existence of the vaccines, which is enormously hopeful. We've still got many testing problems to go through, but it's enormously hopeful. The fact is that it will have no effect on the second spike at all. They won't be ready in time to deal with the second spike. So I've also been very interested in one or two of the medicines which have been found in the world now, been discovered by biopharma industries in different parts of the world, in particular one drug called Jasvinza, which has been made in Cuba, which has got a phenomenal success rate in helping the people who were anticipated would die. something like 94% of the people who've been treated with that drug, for example, who it was anticipated would die, have survived and have gone home healthy.
Yeah.
So there are lots of other things to do as well.
Absolutely. So much to consider. Lord David Triesman, thank you for getting up so early and sharing your expertise on the programme. And just to say that on BBC Online, there is so much more detail about the vaccines that are being looked into, those that are saying they are almost there, and also who might get them, etc. So do have a look at our website, because if you are interested, concerned or have questions, a lot of the answers are there for you, which I can't cover on this programme.